Hello, and welcome along to the stream today. This is my lunchtime stream, so time is short a little bit. So normally I just get kind of stuck in with what I'm wanting to take a look at. So let's just do that. Let's get started. So what I'm here to talk about today is a new tool from a guy called Kim Nordmo. He goes by the handle of Admiring Worm, and this is his repository out on his GitHub organization. And what this is, I see that Kim's just joined us in the chat room, so hello, Kim. What this is a Yeoman Generator that aims to help with the creation of Cake Addins. So if you are going to create a Cake Addin, I mean, there's some setup work you have to do. You have to create the project, maybe create a unit testing project, maybe decide on how you're going to build it, maybe decide on things like whether you're going to include Dependabot, Mergify, all these other online services that you can use as part of your build. So there's kind of a process that you have to walk through. Now, in the past, what I've used is I've used a process that I've referred to as, I can't remember what it's called now, CI/CD assets. So if I go up here and look at the CI/CD assets, then from my point of view, how I like to set things up is these are all my kind of templated files. So I have a Visual Studio Code extension that when I'm setting up a new project can run off and find all these files and download them and put them in play. Now, what Kim's been working on is a Yeoman Generator that it sort of does the same thing, but it does a lot more. It will build out more. My understanding is it'll build out more of the project structure and the templated files for you in a way that allows you to kind of kickstart the process of creating that add-in. Now, I'm saying all of this like I know what it's about, but I don't yet. I've specifically kind of said, okay, let's take a fresh pair of eyes and just see what it does. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do this lunchtime. Now, just before the stream started, Kim did message me on Gitter and say that things might not work the way that he would like them to on Windows. I think I'm right in saying that Kim is using a Linux machine as his daily driver. And that's where he'll be doing the majority of his testing, I think. So although the project builds correctly on, and he's saying that that's correct, although the project is built on AppVeyor, which is running on a Windows machine, and I'm guessing Linux as well, he'll be using, I'm guessing here that he'll be using both the Windows and the Linux built on AppVeyor. Although it builds correctly, there's some issues when it comes to the running of it. So if nothing else, this will be a good integration test for Kim to see where things are. So in order to use this, we need to have Yeoman installed. He's running Mac and he's running Linux and Mac builds on Travis as well. So he's covering all the bases. So in order to get this Yeoman Generator installed, I'm going to need the Yeoman tool. Now, the Yeoman tool has one of the best names of an application ever. It's just called Yo, right? But I don't have Yo or Yeoman installed because, again, base machine, didn't want to have anything installed. The one thing I do have is npm. Now, I got npm on this machine because I didn't want to wait for everything to be installed. And I did that just by doing choco install node.js. Right, that's how I installed it. So if I do choco list here local only, then I will see that I have node.js installed, which is fine. Right, so then I can go ahead and install Yeoman. So I can do that either through, and this is where the kind of inception of application package managers kicks in. So I could do an npm install of Yo or Yeoman, or I could use Chocolatey to install it. So I work for Chocolatey. I'm going to use Chocolatey to install it. So I'm going to do choco install Yo here. So that will run off to chocolate.org. It'll download it. I'll get a deprecated warning when it's trying to install it. It's a warning. It's let's choose to overlook that one just now. And let's see what this does. So this, when it's finished, should give me the Yo executable, right? So once that finishes, dun, 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 it's going to finish. I'm sure it's going to finish. Sure it's going to finish. There we go. Beautiful. Doing stuff now. So if I go ahead and clear this, now in theory I should have Yo. I do, right? So what Yeoman's asking me there is we're constantly looking for ways to make Yo better. Do I want to send anonymous usage feedback? This is a test machine, so I'm going to say no on this one. And it's then asking me if I want to install a generator. So if I go back to Kim's repository here, that's my one, so let's close that one. Back to Kim's repository, then he actually tells us how to do the install of the Yeoman Generator, which is to use npm install global and then the name of this thing. But I'm intrigued now to see whether I can do it through here. So having installed Yeoman, I'm going to go ahead and say I want to install a generator. Search npm for generators. Oh, let's do this then. So I'm going to put in here generator -cake -addin as the name, and let's see what that does. It's going to search npm for that, and I know that it should be on there. It did, look. So this is where Kim has published the Addin generator 2. Oh, really? Oh, it must have found it. Yes, so it must have taken the generator off the front for me. So yeah, it found it. So I can go ahead and say I want that one, and it's going to go ahead and install that generator for me. So there are lots and lots of different generators out there on Yeoman. Yeoman's quite one of these tools that has a generator for everything. I mean, there's ones for Azure DevOps. There's I know there's lots of them, right? So now I can say run a generator. So I'm going to actually come out of this. So I'm going to say I'm finished with this just now, right? Because what I want to show you now is how we would run it directly. So imagine the scenario that we've already done the installation, and all we want to do is to run the add-in. Run the Addin generator. So that's what this command here is. So we say yo cake addin, right? So what we'll do is let's go ahead and cd into ctemp, and in here we will say make dir test addin, and then we'll cd into that test addin. Okay, so we've kind of got a blank folder to play with now. Kim saying the best generator is generator code, just because it's one to call to run. Just because of the name to call it to run it. Yo code. So the code generator would be for we've used that on previous streams. That's for creating the different things that you can put into VS Code, I believe. So you've got I think that's the one I'm talking about, where you would create an add-in extension, or you would create a language pack or something that goes into VS Code. Right, so now that we've got that, so let's do yo cake addin and see what it does. Right, so let's go ahead. Let's see what it does. There we go. So this dude here, this ASCII art, because there's nothing better than a bit of ASCII art, is the Yeoman Generator. Let's make this font a little bit bigger so it appears on the screen. There we go. So the idea behind any sort of generator is it will lead you through the process. It'll ask you some questions, and it'll take all of those inputs and give you something at the end of it. So what is the name of your Addin project? So I'll cheat a little bit, and I'll just call. I've already got an add-in called cake.twitter, but and it's an add-in for sending tweets to Twitter as part of your build. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and say that's going to be the name of my add-in project. Who is the repository owner or organization where all the add-ins will be located? Oh, say that again now, Kim. So what you're saying is there, without cake dot, it will be removed. So you're saying, what is the name of the cake? I should, oh, so it just put in Twitter. I see what it did there. Gotcha. So it will add cake.twitter for me. Is that correct? Let's wait and see. Get an answer there. Okay, cool. Okay, so the expectation there is just the thing that you're, so it would be Gem or Git or Warp, whatever tool you're kind of building an add-in around, that would be the add-in project. So let's imagine that I'm putting this into the Cake Contrib organization. So I'm going to put in Cake Contrib there. So that's going to be the owner. Who is the repository owner or organization? So that's Cake Contrib. And what is the GitHub username for the main add-in author? So let's pretend again that that's me. Oh, sorry. No need to apologize, Maurice. Thank you for coming along. So I'm going to say I'm going to be that person. Who is the? What is the GitHub username of main add-in author? Me. Who is the main author of the Cake add-in? Oh, so this wants my name here. Is that correct, Kim? I'm seeing yes, but I think that's from the last question that I asked. So Kim's saying on this question, it's saying it is prompting. It is supposed to say what is the full name. Okay, fine. So this would be me then. So Gary Park. What is the description for the Cake add-in? I'm going to say that press enter to launch your preferred editor. Okay. Sure. Description here is going to be adds the ability to send tweets as part of your build process. Okay. I'm going to say save, and I'm going to close that. Quite like that. I didn't know that Yeoman could do that, actually. So that's good. So here it is. So on this machine, for text files, it's probably still set up as Notepad for the default. So that's why we saw Notepad. Nothing wrong with Notepad. Notepad's fine. So this one is saying, what license will the Cake add-in use? So typically I do everything under an MIT license. That's what I publish all my code under. But I do like the sound of this one, just because why not? So I'm going to choose the MIT one, because that's what I want to use. Where will the project source files be located? You see, so this is where these are where the type of conventions will come into play. So Kim has a default value here of .src folder. I tend to use that, but again, it's a generator, so it's giving me an option here. We've got Gareth Hubble in the chat room. Hello, Gareth. Thank you for coming along. Just to get you caught up, we are having a play with the newish Cake Yeoman Generator that Kim has created, and we're just walking through the process of creating a new scaffolded out project specifically for a new add-in. It's a fake one. This Cake.Twitter add-in already exists, but I'm just using that as an example. And Kim was also saying there, I think it just launches Notepad when editor isn't set anywhere. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. So I'm going to, by default, the default value that Kim had for this answer was .src, but I'm going to say that I want my source files to live in a source folder. That's just my preference. So I'm going to say that. What is the name? Oh, I love it. Okay, so what is the name of the Cake build script that you want to use? So, okay, let me stop everyone here then. So It is. So you'll see that I have VS Code here. So the comment that Maurice made there was, my favorite text editor is probably VS Code. It probably is at the minute. But let me show you guys this and see if you've heard about it. I got told about this one last night, and it seems rather cool to the point that I have pre-ordered it. It's an OmniVim 2 that is combining Vim style modal editing with the aesthetics and language features of modern editors. So I toy with the thought that I really want to know Vim and want to be able to do Vim a lot. So I have the Vim plugin for VS Code installed on most machines that I have. But this one is Vim first and foremost. But the interesting thing about this is that it's going to support the VS Code extensions. So within this shell, which is a Vim, the OmniVim shell, I'm going to be able to put in all of my VS Code extensions. So I'm very interested to see how this one pans out. But it's not available yet as an actual installable thing. You have to build it from source at the minute. But sometime this month, this should have an alpha build out. See, when I say I use Vim, Kim, let me be very clear. I use like 5% of the keyboard shortcuts, but even those are ridiculously helpful. So this will force me more to well, that's my thought process. It'll force me more to use it. And at the minute, because it's in the pre-order stage, there's no fixed price. You can offer as much or as little as you want to obtain the license. And like I say, you can build it from source if you want to. I literally only found out about this last night, so I haven't delved into the source code to see how to build it yet. But I just thought it was an interesting idea, so I have pre-ordered it, so I have got a license. Anyway, so I got completely distracted there. We're back to here. So this next question is, what is the name of the Cake build script you want to use? Now, typically, if you read all the documentation for Cake, what you would normally have is a build.cake file as your kind of entry point. But this generator, by default, uses cake.recipe, which is a collection of a NuGet package, which is a collection of build scripts. And kind of the recommendation is to have a recipe.cake file as the entry point. So that's what I'm going to have there. Do you want to add configurations for the all? See, I love what Kim's doing here. Right. So if you're not familiar with the all contributors bot, it's really quite cool. I haven't added it to all my repositories yet, but it's something I want to do. But what you'll see here is this is the all contributors bot here. So what this does is the bot that's running in the cloud maintains this section, which is a list of all the contributors that have added to your project. Now, what you do is, and we'll probably see this as we're going, if we look at some of the pull requests that, or maybe he hasn't, but what you do is, on a pull request, you actually speak to the bot and you say, add Kim for documentation, or add Kim for writing some code, or add Kim for helping out with something else. And what the bot will then do is it will then create a pull request into the repository and then update this section down here. So each one of these little emoticons is how that person has helped with the project. And it's a really nice and simple way of kind of keeping things at the front and center of your repository in terms of what their contributions have been. And I think it's a really good idea. But like I say, it's not something I've added onto all my repositories yet. But this Yeoman Generator is asking whether I want to include that or not. And I'm going to say yes to that, because I want that to be set up. Do you want to use YAM to generate documentation? So that's my preference is for that. So for those of you that don't know what YAM is, so YAM is a static static website generator that will take Markdown and or source files and or XML documentation files and kind of stitch it all together and make a website out of it. So for most of my add-ins, so let's go and take a look at one. Cake contrib. Let's just look at the cake.twitter one actually. So cake.twitter has an associated. Oh, let's read the docs. That's maybe I'll have to change that. So this is the documentation site that is generated by YAM for this add-in. So in here I have some examples on how to call to send a tweet from the add-in, and then because of the way that YAM works against source files, it's also got all of the API information because it's taken all of that from the generated XML documentation files. So including that within your project is reasonably simple to do. And again, that's what this Yeoman Generator is asking me about. So I'm going to say yes to that. Do you wish to enable Travis builds? So I tend not to. I'll be honest. Historically, I've not had good experiences with Travis. I tend to almost always use AppVeyor for all of my builds, but I think Travis has been getting better, and Travis now has support for Windows as well, so it is an option now. So sure, let's see what it does. So I'm going to say yes to that one. And Kim's saying me neither, not for C# projects. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. But I'm going to put it in just to see what it generates. Do you wish to use a contributing.md file? Interesting. So the contributing.md file is what would appear. So let's see if Kim's got one over here. His contributing.md file would be, how do I contribute to this repository? So I'm going to assume that this is going to scaffold me out some kind of file that I can add to or take away from to say, how do you contribute to this repository? So I'm going to say yes to that because that's something I want. What email address may be used for contacting regarding unacceptable behavior? Interesting. Where did it get that email address from? Is that taking it from my Git configuration, Kim? Where did it get that? No, I know where it's going. Where did it get this as a prompt? Okay, from Git. Okay, in which case that's fine. Do you want to enable Linux builds on AppVeyor? I would. Yes, absolutely. Which unit testing library do you want to use for your Cake add-in? That's a tough one. Although my up and down arrow keys don't seem to be working here. I don't seem to be getting a choice there. Is that one of the issues that you were aware of, Kim? That's the one I mentioned again. Okay, so I'm just going to hit enter then, or how do I move on from this one? Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so that was what I had to do there was I had to hit enter, and then it gave me the option again, and then I'm able to choose it. So I'm going to say XUnit, and then this is probably the error that Kim mentioned as well. So it was specifically having an error with copying dot. Oh, sorry. I can do that. Let's move it up. So this error, I can move my head. This is the error that Kim mentioned to me on Gitter just before this. So that it was having an issue with copying dot files because let's see if they're there actually. So where is it trying to find them? So let's do C users vagrant. Oh, it was fixed in the latest release. Okay, so how do I get the most recent release of the generator? So I would need to do npm install global again of generator cake addin. Let's see if that gives me the most recent version. And then we'll quickly run through that again and see if we can get that to work again. So it's updated one package to 1.1.1. So let's do it again. And let's move this up so everyone can see it. What is the name? So I'm just going to say Twitter. Let's actually do this again. Let's get it back up to the top. So we're going to say Twitter. We're going to say Cake Contrib. We're going to say Get 13. Oh, I could have Carrigan Park. Let's just say that's not right at this time. Let's just save that and close it out. I'm going to say if the generator didn't error the first time, those values would have been... Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I'm going to say MIT. I'm going to say source. I'm going to say cake recipe.cake. I'm going to say yes to that. 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 And I'm going to say that one. I'm going to say yes to that. Looks like I still needed to press enter there to make it get onto that up and down options, Kim. I'm going to say X unit tests, and then it went ahead and created a bunch of stuff. So let's let that finish and then see what we get. So then Mr. Yeoman has popped up saying, thank you for using Cake Addin Generator. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I see. Okay, so Kim's saying that the problem on that particular one for picking the X unit or N unit is an issue with Yeoman, he thinks. So if we go into code dot now, let's see what we got created for us. So we have that source folder that we asked for, and in there it has created a cake.twitter project. And in there, it's created a cake.twitter.tests project. Oh my goodness, look at all this stuff. Oh, Kim has been very busy. So we'll come back to the code in a second. And then Kim's saying something. Let's bring this up. I think this is with regard to the... Oh, I see. I see. So what Kim has done is he's requested from the all contributors bot to add me as a contributor for video, and then what it links back to is a comment. So as part of this PR, Kim added a comment which is talking to all contributors bot, saying please add me, Get13, for video, and then the contributor bots replied saying not a problem, I'll do that for you, and then it's created this pull request. Like I say, that pull request is all about so it's added me as a user to this all contributors src file, and then what it does is it maintains this section of code which is it'll put my face or my avatar onto that readme.md file, and yeah, it's really quite clever. I do like the idea of the all contributors bot. I really do. Thank you very much for adding me to that, Kim. I appreciate it. So with that done, let's back to Visual Studio Code, and so it's created some source files, and I'll come back to those in a second because I want to dive into those to see what they're in there, what's in there. It's created me a tools folder with a packages.config file, and it's pinned me. So this is kind of illustrating the best practices of Cake itself. So it's saying pin to a specific version of Cake rather than saying open-ended, not pinning to a specific version of Cake. That's the all contributors.src file that was being updated by the contributor bot that we saw. This is a scaffolded out appver.yaml file that has both Ubuntu and Visual Studio 2017 images for doing the builds on. It's got some best practices that I know myself and Kim have spoken about, I think, on some other streams about configuration of our appver, kind of best practices. What this is saying, I'm assuming that is... I don't actually know what that one is. Appver YAML disable PowerShell on Linux. Why are you disabling PowerShell on Linux, Kim? Just out of curiosity. These are the whitelisted branches that you want to build from. Oh, I see. Okay. So again, this is in line with kind of the Git flow branching strategy that myself and Kim both follow. So it will build from master, developer, release, and hotfix branches, but it won't build on any other ones. Oh, I see. Okay, so what Kim's saying is if this line here on line 11 wasn't there, then as part of the build, it would attempt to build both the build.sh and the build.ps1 file, which is not necessarily what we want. Makes sense. And then it's got tests and build on and off because we're using Cake to do the build, so we don't want appver's build or test to kick in. And then the build scripts are either the PowerShell version or the shell version. I don't follow what. Oh. Correction, I don't follow the whitelist. I typically use a blacklist. Interesting. Okay. Fair enough. Then we've got some caching of the tools folder based on any of those things files changing, which is, again, normally what I do as well. And then it's passing in some environment variables for the matrix to make the build work. That all looks good to me so far. Editor config file. So using an editor.config file is just kind of, in my head, it's good practice. You're stipulating externally how you want your source files to be adhered to, and almost all of the main IDEs and text editors have the ability to have editor config either baked in or via an extension. So there's a question there from Gareth. Do people on here run a CI server on your own machines or run it in the cloud? So typically I do all of my CI builds on in the cloud. So I would either use, depending on what I'm building, I will build on appver or on Azure DevOps or Circle CI or other ones. The kind of the benefit that we have from the way that I personally do it, which is to use Cake, is that Cake as a build automation tool runs locally on my machine as well. So I can run the build locally on my machine, and then I can push the commit up to GitHub or GitLab, wherever I have the source code, and then the build that runs on the CI server is actually the same as the one I have locally. So I don't have a CI server locally, but I can run the same build that would run on the CI server locally on my machine. So that's that. I'm going to have to look at this because Kim's got a bit more in this editor.config file than I have in my template one. So I'm going to have to look and see what he's following and see if it makes sense. Because I know the very basics of what goes into an editor.config file, so I'm always curious about looking at other people's ones to see what they're doing and then figuring out why. GitHub attributes, again, this is one that I know not enough about. So I'm going to look at Kim's one to see what he's got in there and probably steal all of it. Git ignore is got all the good things in there, and it's got the things that I'm interested in terms of Cake configuration, which it does. All of that looks good to me. Here's my travis.yaml file, which will be similar to what was done with appver. Very good. Yorc JSON file. What's that file, Kim? Is that? Oh, I know what that was. Those are all the choices that I made. Do I care about that in my project? Do I need this file? So if I were to run it again, it would use these or why would I guess my question is, why do I keep this in my why would I keep this in my repository? Just curious. The build.ps1 and the build.sh, those are the bootstrappers to use with Cake. So out of curiosity, Kim, do these files, are these pulled from the Cake website when at the point that this ran, or have you baked it into the Yeoman Generator itself? Just curious on that one. Oh, you did? Oh, hold on. No, I maybe never. Oh, here we go. Feel free to report any bugs. You may now remove... Oh, I see. No, I didn't read that, Kim. I apologize. Okay, so if I'm using a sub generator... Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Thanks for that. So I could delete that one. Code of conduct is using the contributor covenant code of conduct, which is the one that I adhere to as well. So that's good. Contributing.md has got some template in here, which is good. So I would need to read through that to make sure that it's... And I see, oh, look at that. So it's got spaces in here for me to... Beautiful. Love it. It's using Git Release Manager. Oh, this is all good stuff so far, Kim. There's a lot of stuff in here for configuring how Git Release Manager works, which is good. So I would do a sanity check on that. Do not spaces the links are okay. Oh, sorry. So what you're saying is that down at the bottom here. I see. Yes, okay. So there's links at the bottom. Oh, I just spotted in the chat that someone's saying that they love chocolatey. That's if I were there in person, you would get a sticker. You can have a virtual sticker for your virtual collection of. There you go. Thank you very much. So that was that. Git Release Manager YAML file is for controlling how a set of release notes is generated as part of the build. It's got the MIT license file in there. Love it. It's got stubbed out a README file. Oh my goodness. And then well, it depends on where you're from, Gareth. I'm up beside Aberdeen. Well, just north of Aberdeen, if that helps. Are you in the Central Belt? This is my Chocolate Fest t-shirt release. Absolutely, yeah. Flying the flag. So then it's got my recipe.cake file, which is pulling in a pinned version of cake.recipe. It's got some build parameters that have taken all of the stuff from what I put in. Look at that. What's he got in here? Should execute git link is false. It's fine. Should run git version true. Should run code. Should deploy graph document. See, this one's probably one of the ones that we're going to be taking out in the next version, as changing the default on that. And should okay. So I see you've gone that way. That's fine. It's not a problem with that. And then running .NET Core build. Beautiful. Your English is very under. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I really am. You're down in. I call that down in Englandshire. Anything south of the border is Englandshire. Okay, so that's kind of all of the build stuff. So let's look at what actually got created in terms of the add-in itself. So we've got the CS project file, obviously, which has got... Oh, look at that. So, oh my goodness. You've done a lot of work on this, Kim. I have to applaud you. You've done quite a lot in here. You really have. So what this has given me out of the box is... This is kind of amazing. So let's break this down a little bit. So it's giving me a copyright information, but it's figuring that out based on a calculation up here. So that's going to change as required. which is pretty cool. The description is what I put into the Yeoman Generator. Here it's calculated a project icon URL using the jsdeliver.net. It's set the MIT, it's set the project URL, it's already pre-populated some tags, it's got the repository URL correct, it's then linking out to the release notes based on the version number that's been passed in. It's already got a package reference to cake.core. My goodness. So that's that. Then it's stubbed out kind of the top level aliases file. So this is kind of where you would put in all of the whatever you wanted your alias to do. So in the case of the Twitter add-in, there's a send tweet alias. So this is kind of where that stuff would go. And it's already stubbed that out for me with either calling that by itself. So I mean this I might want to refactor that this Twitter here might be called send tweet, but it's already got that an entry point for an alias with no settings, and then we're passing in something that is Twitter settings. It's then got a runner that's stubbed out how the tool is being executed. It's taken a guess at what that tool's actually called. Oh my goodness, I'm kind of blown away by all of this in terms of what's been done here. So cake.twitter.tests has then got some stubbed out fixtures for how the runner is working. Again, it took a guess at what the exe was called. So in this case, maybe cake.twitter wasn't the best example for me to use, because the way that cake.twitter works is it's actually reliant on me doing some work within a library. So I'm not executing an exe on the file system. But if I were to do something like cake.warp or something, then it would have an exe or a binary file that I could execute, and then the guess that had been made would probably be more applicable to this. And it's already got stubbed out tests for. Oh my goodness! So bottom line. Okay, but I mean, so it's made an informed guess, is what I'm getting at, Kim. So it's made an attempt at, if you were to name that add-in as per the actual executable that you're driving, then a lot of this is already set up for you. So, oh my goodness, and yeah. So from here, I've got a good portion of the setup code that I would want to then be able to start creating this add-in. So then it would be a case of looking at what that executable is doing. So what arguments do I need to pass in to make it work? What are the kind of the top level commands that it can execute? But I haven't had to worry about all of the project setup. I haven't had to worry about whether or not I have a build.ps1 file or where I need to get that, or my standard editor.config file. This is all pretty cool. So, question for Kim. If I didn't quite like one of your files, let's just pick on the editor.config file. Let's say there was something in here that I didn't like and I wanted it to be different. Is there a way for me to modify that file within the generator so that the next time I run it, I wouldn't have to remember to change it? Or is what I get from the generator always going to be that with no way of modifying it? Or can I tweak it a little bit? And what Kim's saying there in the chat room is that if I did get something wrong, I could run the generator again. And if there was a difference between what it wanted to put in and what was there, it would ask me if it's okay. Not yet, unfortunately, but I do plan on some small change. Okay, that's cool. Because like I say, I there's nothing in here that immediately says, "Oh my god, I don't want to do that." But if let's imagine the case that I was a tab person. I'm not, but let's say I was. And I didn't want the Yeoman generator to use spaces. I wanted it to use tabs. Is that the kind of thing that I could tweak? Or is that the kind of thing I would have to remember to change each time? do plan some small changes to be allowed, but nothing major. Okay, I mean, and like I say, at the end of the day, like my CI/CD assets things, those default files are my files. It's the way that I want my project to be set up. In the same way, I would imagine that what you've created here is driven by how you want your project to be set up, and that's perfectly fine. Tab and indent size is planned to be allowed. Oh, very cool. And that's, yes, and what Gareth is saying is the obvious next line here would be feel free to fork the generator. And that's absolutely so. And to an extent, I agree with you. And I do. And in the case of this thing, I think it would make sense, yes, because then you could have your specific generator. In principle, forking is something I like to try and avoid, if all possible, because it means you get dilution of the ecosystem, the wider ecosystem. And we've got this in Cake to an extent, where people who have created an add-in and then someone will fork it and then push another ID to NuGet. So there's kind of a dilution of the ecosystem. So to an extent, I agree with what you're saying, and I could make it specific to me, but I'm just wondering how much configuration we can get so that it could be more usable by people, but just small tweaks in it. Yeah. So what Kim's saying is that yes, it's based on kind of Kim's recommendations, but also the guidelines that come from Cake Contrib, which is good. And Gareth's saying is I still like some customizations in the generator, but sometimes a personal fork might be handy. Yeah, that's true. But also the nice thing that I noticed that Kim did as well is Kim has got this under his organization. So in theory, if I'm assuming, I'm not going to speak for Kim, but if you did become an avid contributor, then it's easier to allow other people to be custodians of this repository because it's under an organization, as opposed to being directly under his Admiring Worm personal account on GitHub. So I like that that's happened. I do this as well. Almost all of the stuff that I do on GitHub now is done under an organization, so that I can add in people as contributors to give them more access than they would typically get if it was under my own GitHub account. It's also what you said. Yeah, we accept PRs. So no, I mean, I kind of said it already, Kim, but yeah, this is. I'm very impressed. I like this a lot. I think I'll probably be using this, or if nothing else, I will be advocating the use of this for setting up any Cake add-ins, because kind of out of the box, it's establishing best practices for how to do things. It's gotten you halfway through the project creation, so it's already got the project set up. And I'm assuming that they've got a reference between each other, so one's going to be able to call the other in terms of doing the unit tests. Yeah, so well, let's just see what happens, shall we? So let's do a build. let's see what happens. It's either going to go really well, or there's obviously some kind of top level stuff that we need to change. Could not find script. Test Addin NuGet. Huh. What does that error mean? Could not find script. Yeah, I thought it was odd too. So, did I break something? NuGet. Oh, that's. Why does that not look? That doesn't look right to me. Is that not a colon? Not a hash symbol? Yeah. That should be one of those. Try that again. See if that works. So we start the build. The environment does not contain a definition for set environment variable. Is it set environment variable names? me go back to Cake Confib, Cake.Twitter. Let's have a look. Should probably know that. It's not the kind of thing I have in the top of my head though. Yeah, it's an S, I think. See what that does. And Maurice is saying it's a Cake Addin cookbook. I think that's absolutely what it is. Oh, interesting. Okay. So there was a couple of things there that, and then Git version failed for some reason, but that could be Git version being Git version. Oh, because I haven't got a Git repository. I haven't initialized it as a Git repository. So if I were to do Git in it, I would need to do a commit in order for that to work. So that's why Git version is failing there. So yeah, I'm not sure then, Kim. There's at least two things there that needed to be tweaked. So I had that colon there as it was a hash symbol originally, and then set and variable name needed to be names. There is a generator for that. But yeah, on the whole, I mean, this is phenomenal. I'll be honest. I love that word, phenomenal. So I would wholeheartedly recommend that people go out and use this Cake Addin generator. So I knew you were going to say that, Maurice, or I knew someone was going to say that. I know little to nothing about how to actually create a Yeoman generator. Based on what I've seen here, I'm actually curious as to what I could do with it. So I am tempted to have a look and see where I would need to change things, but I don't really know where to start, to be honest. So I'm assuming in somewhere in here that it's generating a recipe.cake file. Oh, hold on. It could well be a subject for my next stream. That's very true. But let's have a look in this build templates folder. So why then? Oh, you see? So it is in there. So how did you get a working build then, Kim? Because in theory, I mean, I've only got 4 minutes left, so I'm not going to do it. But I would imagine that all that would be required would be to change that and to stick an S on the end. Curious. So, and then I don't know how I would need to look at how it then gets published and to understand how that works. So I am genuinely curious about how to do one of these. I might take a proper look at this, and I think I've started it already. Oh no, I haven't. Let's make sure I've started that so that I can be informed about when things happen on it. And yeah, let's fork it as well. Oh no, I have forked it, so I've got that ready. But yeah, so yeah, if you haven't already, go and check it out. I know I'm going to be using it. So that's me coming up on the end of the top of the hour. So that's my lunchtime stream finishing for the day. I haven't got any immediate plans for my Monday night stream. I've got lots of stuff to do, but I haven't really formalized in my head about what I want to do yet in terms of something we can all get involved in. I finished off the pull request that I did into Chef, so that Ruby code I was doing, that got finalized and it's currently being reviewed. I finished off the PR that I did for the export command going into Chocolatey. There is some kind of work around Chocolatey that I want to start looking into, but it's a much bigger task and a lot of it needs some kind of upfront design work. I don't know if that's something that makes sense to be done on a stream or whether it's more... It would be better to start doing the work after that design work's been done. So I'll have a think about that. If nothing else, there's plenty of Cake.Addins that need to be updated. So we could always take a look at that and see if there's more of those to be done. But for now, I want to say a big thank you. Oh, hold on. Kim just wants to mention a small thing. Feel free. feel free to, and I will read it onto the stream. And yeah, as I said before, if you haven't checked out this OniVim 2, definitely go and take a look at it. I think this is going to be really, really interesting to play with. So that was OniVim 2, that was YAM. Ooh, okay, so what Kim's saying there is that, if I've understood correctly, then each one of these in itself is a generator. So we ran the top level one, which was to add all of them in. But what Kim's saying is we could individually run each of these if we only wanted certain things to come out of it. In the following location, all directories are a sub-generator except app and util. So everything else, appvar, build, conduct, each of these is a standalone generator. So if I wanted to run just one thing, i.e. the code of conduct generator, I could do that and it would give me just the code of conduct. And what Kim's saying there is by doing yo cake addin colon and then the name, and then that's what would give me it. That's really cool. I like that as well. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so big thank you to Kim for doing this. Appreciate it. Go out and star his repository and start using it, and I'm sure he'll welcome any feedback. But for now, I'm going to go and do some actual work. So thank you for joining me on the stream today, and hopefully see you on Monday, and we'll go from there. Right, take care. Thank you very much.